Hi there, welcome to Frames TM, and today I'm going to talk about a controversial topic. For me, it's not controversial. For a lot of people, it could be. And the conversation is on whether Nikon has gotten the design right on the ZF from one point of view. And that point of view is how do you use aperture priority and shutter priority. Fuji has one little A written on this dial, the ISO dial, and one little A written on the shutter dial. And then there'll be a thing written on the lens, and most of the Fuji lenses, in fact all Fuji lenses, have a manually changing aperture ring. You can slot the ring to A means automatic. So what you have to do on Fuji is, I find that complicated. If you want to put the camera on aperture priority on a Nikon, all you have to do is just push this lever and move through aperture priority, shutter priority, program mode or manual mode. That's about it. The moment you move from I shoot in manual, the moment you move from manual to let's say aperture priority, aperture priority, you're in aperture priority. You don't have to do any other jugglery. You don't have to think more. You don't have to calculate more. On the Fuji, you have to ensure that you do two things. You have to ensure that you put ISO on auto or A on the dial and shutter on auto or A on the dial. There are two things to change. And then you have to leave the aperture ring on the lens, not on auto. So you choose through the range of aperture values that you have on the lens ring. So it's a 1.4 lens, you're at 1.4, you want to stop down to 2.8 to change it here. So according to your input on the lens and the amount of light the lens can gather because of the aperture that you've chosen, the shutter speed and the ISO will keep changing. I find that complicated because first of all, there are two actions involved. You have to put two dials to the positions of A, number one. Number two, you have to understand the whole process very deeply. There is another problem. Fuji is now starting to have a lot of third-party lenses. What if you have a lens like the Sigma lenses, for example, where you don't have an aperture ring? How are you going to change it to aperture priority mode then? That's the problem. It's more complicated. It is nice, it is just beautiful when you think about it, but I think practically during daily usage, the Fuji system is actually more complicated. It's probably a slightly more authentic way of doing it because you're putting the functions on the dials themselves. But I think Nikon's implementation is far more practical, and understand most people are not, we are not in 1980s or 1990s, and most people are not coming from the background of using a retro camera. Most people are actually coming from either using a smartphone or using modern DSLR style camera. Like DSLRs have been around for the last 20-25 years, which means that's the backdrop. That's people's memories and that's people's habits. So this is far more intuitive for most people, and this is not a brute way of imposing the retro style and retro way of operating a camera on the consumer or the photographer or the videographer. This is almost like if you want to transition from a traditional DSLR to a modern retro style mirrorless camera, you can do that, and Nikon is far better suited to that. I just love the way you just have to change one switch to get to what you want to do. And that's my explanation. I think, honestly, I think it's a stupid argument to say that, this doesn't make sense. The PASM button, wheels, toggle buttons make sense because it's been used for about 2 decades and no one has been complaining. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you soon with another one.